That's a very kind of political thing because, you have people on both sides of it.
No, I don't think there's a set answer.
I feel that it's really controversial.
I have mixed feelings.
I'm very pro-life, so I think it's wrong.
I'm pro-choice, so I think that people should be able to choose what they do with their body.
The abortion debate has been argued across our country for more than 36 years. Since the passage of Roe v. Wade in 1973, almost 50 million abortions have been performed on women across the United States. Yet it still remains one of the most highly controversial issues of our day. New legislation is continually being drafted about it. Political candidates have based their platforms on it. And Supreme Court justices have been selected based on it. So why the controversy? Are there not any clear facts in the issue that could bring about resolution? In the next 30 minutes, we will look at some of the biggest planks in the debate and let you be the judge.
I don't guess I've ever really given it much thought to when life begins.
I don't believe in abortion. I think that's a life already, so you don't need to. It's the same thing as murder.
In the whole debate concerning abortion, there's many issues that are thrown around and discussed. Yet, when it's all said and done, there's only one crucial issue. There's only one crucial question. That question is, when does life begin? Once we know when life begins, we have the answer to all the other questions relating to the abortion issue. So when does life begin? Well, medicine and science says life begins at conception. At that time, a separate genetic entity is created. Nothing's added but time and growth.
Well, the best weapon for the pro-life movement has been the advent of ultrasound. Because decades ago, they used to say, well, it's just a blob of tissue. But now a woman can look through an ultrasound and see a baby, and they know whether it's a boy or a girl. And when we use the words boy or girl, we're referring to human beings. So this is an independent cause for the rise of the pro-life movement in recent decades.
My name is Beth, and was raised in a Christian home, and knew I'd never get myself into a situation where I'd consider abortion or even have to think about it. After I graduated high school, I was working as a lifeguard at the local pool and ended up making a lot of friends that didn't hold the same values I did to be important, compromising promises I'd made to myself and God regarding what I would do in my dating relationships, what I would say for my husband, and ended up pregnant at 19 and felt like I couldn't tell anybody and felt like I had never imagined myself in that situation because it seemed so far away. That seemed like such a far away possibility. So when I ended up making a decision, it was to have an abortion and start over and pretend I'd never gotten myself in that situation in the first place. Found out, 6 weeks along, and they said, oh, that's good, you're really early, you caught it really early, like it was, cancer.
I just believe that it's murder. Like, any way you look at it, to kill a living thing, it's just wrong.
Because of some of the misinformation in the whole debate on abortion, some people are actually told, well, this unborn child is just a blob of tissue, not a human being. Well, medical science is quite definitive on this and tells us what happens in this developing child within the mother. At day 6, we have an embryo implanting in the uterus. On day 22, the baby's own heart's beating. It's beating his own blood, which might be a different blood type than the mother. Week 5, eyes, legs, hands begin to develop. Week 6, brain waves can even be detected. And week 8, all organs are in place.
Ultrasound is just a powerful experience for any pregnant woman that once you're able to see a baby moving inside your womb with arms and legs, fingers and toes, a heartbeat and brain waves, that we see that a lot at a pregnancy center. Women come in and they are wanting to have an abortion, and once they have an ultrasound to confirm their viable uterine pregnancy, it changes their mind because they see that this is a baby grown inside of them and not just a blob of tissue. There's always a lot of controversy on when a baby is a human being and a viable person, and a great example of that is Scott and Lacey Peterson. If you remember the murder case of a few years ago, that their baby Connor, that Scott was prosecuted for the murder of Lacey and Connor, and I believe Lacey was 7 months pregnant or so. So there's always a lot of discrepancy on when a baby is actually considered a viable human being.
When Justice Blackmun was writing Roe versus Wade, he refused to address the issue of whether a baby is a person. He refused to address the issue of when does life begin, because if life begins at conception, then that's a person and is protected by the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. And so he avoided that. And President Obama did the same thing. Now everybody who's come home and told, wife who's come home and said to her husband, I'm pregnant, you wouldn't say to her, when did life begin? As one Catholic priest said in a debate, if you don't think it begins at conception, leave it alone for 9 months and see what happens.
My reason is because it's taking away a life. So I'm not with it. I don't like that.
I do think there should be laws to prevent abortion because, I mean, it's just, I think of it as an unborn child and they don't have any way to protect themselves.
Just to have an abortion because you young and you had sex and you don't want your child, that's not right. Abortion is only right only for if a child's going to be born like AIDS or say incest, or the mother is raped because she didn't have a choice whether or not she wanted that baby or not.
I think the abortion issue is a serious issue. It affects men and women. I'm not in favor of abortion. I'm in favor of birth control.
When I was approximately 22 years old, I decided to go and have an abortion. I made the choice due to my mother telling me that I didn't need any more children, that I had one already, and that I should finish college, and this would interfere with my college education. So I decided that I would go and have an abortion because I felt like that if I had the abortion, it wouldn't interfere with my college education.
Well, there are very many important issues surrounding the abortion debate, such as the financial situation of the mother, the health of the baby, mentally and physically, emotional support. These are real concerns. They shouldn't be ignored. Yet, we have to keep in mind the one crucial issue is, when does life begin? Once we've determined life begins at conception and we're talking about a human being, well, you do not end the life of a human being to solve problems. The sanctity of life is more important than the problem.
I don't think people have the right to play God and say that I'm not going to keep this or I'm going to terminate this.
I totally think that children should be born with a quality of life.
Quality of life brings to me the actions of the Germans during World War II under Hitler. When they looked at the quality of life and they saw people like Down syndrome children, which they called Mongolian idiots, dwarfs, aged people, people who are very sick, they used a phrase. They called them useless eaters. And they would exterminate those people because they contributed nothing to society because they had no quality of life, and they had certainly didn't believe in the sacredness of life, and kill them. And that's where abortion leads, because as the treatment of people becomes more expensive, then you have to balance the expense of treatment versus the quality of life of the person you're treating. And older people, Down syndrome, mentally retarded, will be faced with that.
That individual could still do things with their lives, even with a deformity. People have done great things with deformities in their life, so.
I don't think it should be, just because personally I know families who have had children with birth defects and people who might even question that their quality of life isn't necessarily what you or I would have, but to that child and to that family, they think that their quality of life is fabulous, and I know that their life would be altered dramatically without having that child in their lives.
There are many methods of abortion procedures which vary depending on the stage of pregnancy and the size of the unborn child. In first trimester abortions, the most popular types are the suction aspiration and the dilation and curettage. In both, the baby is removed by a suction more powerful than a household vacuum cleaner. The latest trend in early abortions is the chemical abortion, such as RU-486. Second trimester abortions utilize the dilation and evacuation method. This literally refers to the dilation of the cervix and the surgical removal of the unborn child by scraping out the inside of the uterus. Late-term abortions often utilize instillation techniques, such as the saline abortion. This is where a saline solution is injected into the baby's amniotic fluid. After the baby breathes this in and is poisoned, the mother delivers a dead, burned baby within 72 hours. This occasionally ends in the complication of a live birth. The most controversial late-term abortion is the partial birth abortion.
During my career as a lawyer, I've been involved in 7 capital murder cases, and some of them involve some very horrendous crimes, but none of them involve the horrendous crime that goes on in a partial birth abortion. For there, an expectant mother hires a medical doctor to be the executioner and suck the brains out of her half-born baby. Under the Bush administration, it was declared illegal. But I understand the Obama administration wants to reinstitute this procedure.
A partial birth abortion is never necessary to save a woman's life. If you stop and consider what partial birth abortion is, you're causing a baby to be born backwards, keeping its head inside the mother, so then you can suck out its brains, crush the skull, and remove the baby. It's done as a legal loophole, so you can end the life of a late-term abortion that couldn't be ended by normal means of abortion. The legal loophole is that because you managed to end the life of the child inside the mother partially instead of all the way outside, it's still considered technically abortion instead of murder. Sometimes people say, well, it's necessary to save the life of the mother. No, if you want to save the life of the mother and the child, perform a C-section. And it's all completely unnecessary because if the woman's life actually was in jeopardy, the law has always allowed for a woman to have an abortion to save her life. But that happens less than 1% of the time.
Partial birth abortion, I do not agree with that. Just that whole whatever they have to do don't seem right. Sucking out a baby's brains.
Abortion actually is a very cruel procedure. Science and medicine says by week 12, all parts are developed that are necessary for this child to feel pain. And since an abortion is performed without anesthesia, therefore it's a very painful procedure. In contrast, consider that animals, when they're put down, legally are not allowed to be put down in such a cruel and inhuman way. We actually treat animals better than we treat unborn babies.
When Justice Blackmun was reviewing Roe versus Wade, he asked, where did the idea come to outlaw abortions? And one of his law clerks looked it up and said it came from Hippocrates, who lived 400 years before Christ. He was the father of modern medicine. He was considered the most ethical of all physicians, and he made all his students take the Hippocratic Oath and deny that they would ever do an abortion or euthanasia. And he said it became popular in the United States through the Christians who adopted it as the divine law.
I definitely don't like the idea of killing a baby, like it's innocent, but I think it's overall the mother's choice.
Well, Nebraska is the most recent state to require that a woman be shown an ultrasound prior to making a decision about abortion. And that's just a simple informed consent. So why would the pro-choice people oppose to something that's simply a medical procedure?